What's up, YouTube? Thank you for visiting Chameleon Sessions. I've had a few people ask me, how do I chop my beats? It's not rocket science at all. I'm just going to show you what I do when it comes to just solely working on the vinyl, recording into the MPC 2000, and just dumping the two channels straight on to my DAW. That's pretty much what I do. I don't manipulate anything other than maybe putting a limiter on the DAW. So let's get back to the process. I'm sorry. Let's get to the process of what I do as far as beat making. So, well, I know on this beat, the first thing that I sampled was Lighter Shade of Brown. Dip Into My Ride. So Dip Into My Ride, early 90s. I remember this song from my childhood. I love the hell out of this song. So I came across the vinyl single, and it has all kinds of different cuts, versions of Dip Into My Ride. So I had to sample the keys on that. Let's see if I can find that. That's it. That's a good song. There's nothing that beat, man, you can't beat just going through that vinyl, smelling that old ass cardboard. Been owned by I don't know how many people, or just mildewing in a basement, in a attic, garage, thrift store. Shit, I love the thrift store. But anyhow, so let's get back to the sample. Okay, so now we're off to Gap Band. All right, so now we're getting into the main things I've already used so far. So let's listen to the Herbie drums. You hear it? All right, so now one of the tricks that I use for my setup is just a cheap ass compressor. Alesis 3630, extremely affordable. You can find one for $40. $20 depends on how bad somebody's wanting something different, something illegal, and trying to sell them real quick. But they're not that impressive. You know, it's not an expensive, it's not a high quality compressor, but they have been known over the years. Daft Punk has used the 3630 in their records, the very early stages of Daft Punk, and people have loved that. And so that sound, it's that pump sound that you can get out of dance music. But I like to incorporate that in my beats in hip hop. So what you can do with this is I don't separate anything. So everything that's coming out of the Akai is going straight into the 3630. That way I can heavily compress it, kind of squash a little bit. I don't want to kill all dynamics, but I am squashing it so I can get that pump effect out of my beats. That's what you're going to be hearing. So it is going into my DAW. I'm recording it right now as we speak. But it's two channels. I'm not going to manipulate shit on this computer. And that's the way all my beats so far have been made. I do a lot of things with my different style of music, but with hip hop, I really like just old school, traditional type of 90s hip hop beat making. For the pump effect on my compressor, you heard the drums without compression. Now I'm going to go ahead and engage my compressor. So it has a little bit more of a pump to it, but it's not just the drums that creates that pump. It's everything going at the same time. But you do have to make sure that you are leveling out your mixer within the Akai or whatever you are using as far as your machine. Okay, so now let's go to the music. So I have Lighter Shade of Brown right here. And I know I drew a couple of bass samples. The drum pattern, I'm not real happy with that. I don't know if that, I just don't think it sounds full enough. And I'm not talking about fat or like the kick where you can layer it. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the beat itself kind of lacks something. So my thinking is, you know what? We're gonna make this real easy so I don't fuck up, because I know you can't possibly fuck up Clyde Stubblefield. I don't care who you are. So we're probably gonna do that in honor of his name. He recently passed away. We owe that man a lot of gratitude for all the beats that have been created in all genres. Yeah, I think we're gonna go with a different style of beat too. I like the flow of it, but it just sounds, I don't know, it sounds weak. So let's get the sample and some Clyde. Now, something I do want to point out to everyone is something I do want to point out to a lot of people who are watching videos, and of course I've watched a lot of the beat making videos. And everyone's like, you have to record, you have to sample in mono. I'm not saying that you have to do it all stereo. Well, the first thing that you have to think is be yourself. You decide what sounds better, because not everything is going to sound better in mono. Not everything is going to sound better in stereo regarding your beats. Okay. Now, for the most part, yes, a kick, a snare. Yeah, it's going to be more direct and upfront in mono. It's going to have that punch, but you're layering shit anyway. So if you have something like, if you have a drum break that has a real nice open sound and it just sounds three-dimensional already, because you got to remember, I mean, these are top flight engineers. They're legendary engineers. All these drum breaks that you're listening to, they know what the fuck they were doing a lot more than I do. I'm not going to talk about anybody else, but I know that they knew what they were doing a lot more than I do. So that sound, there's no reason to completely draw it out. You're going to manipulate the shit anyway. So if you like the way the space sounds in its stereo sound, then maybe you should keep that and then repeat it and record it in mono. That way you can have that upfront punch, and you can also have the nice wideness, the extra dimension in that sound. So anyhow, drummer, let's go ahead and just let's cut to the chase and just get to something real easy here. Once I get more experienced into doing these videos, then I'll start challenging myself some more, and I'll show you what I really can do getting into these records and stuff. But just to save time, let's look at some shit here. There it is right there already.
Ain't it funky? Ain't it funky? Mm-hmm. Ain't it funky? Ain't it funky? 1, 2,
3, 4. Okay, we're gonna keep that. Whenever I'm thinking of doing the chop, okay, because I have to chop it up and then assign it to all these pads. Well, I'm going to listen to when I want it to start, when I want it to end, but you can have a good idea as to when this beat is going to be break down into each pad. So what I do is, just for practice, is I hit the first pad, and then I go along with it as the beat is progressing. Then you start to memorize where that kick was, where that snare was. Everything doesn't need to be precisely on the hit, because as amazing as these cats were on the drums, they weren't hitting it precisely, and that's what gives it life. So whenever you are chopping them beats up, you got to think about that. Like, well, does it need to be precise? Maybe it's going to sound too robotic. We need to have something that you got Clyde Stubblefield on the drums, okay? Let's let Clyde do his fucking thing, man. Let's not chop him up just completely imprecise. We want to be able to allow him to breathe life into your shit. That's why we sample things, because these people are just they're tremendous. They're incredible musicians. Let's let them breathe the life into there. Okay, let's not sit there and make them robotic. You know what I mean? Now, if you're after a robotic sound, then that's your thing. You just then do it. But for me, I don't like going in there and just precisely making that shit chop, because I want him to be able to make those mistakes, make those timing mistakes. That's what makes us perfect as a human being. So, and I want my beats to be that way too. I'm not gonna assign any pads. Okay, I'm gonna slice the sound now. It's gonna partition it into 16 slices, and I'm not gonna create a new program. I'm not gonna assign to any pads yet. Okay, because I don't know how I want to map this out. If you noticed earlier on my beats, on this beat here, what I did was you can see that I had made the run up on my pattern, on my drum pattern. You see how I'm moving up? Well, typically I'm moving sideways. I'm going pad 1 to pad 4. I'm not jumping up in rows. Okay, so this one is moving up in rows, and the reason why I kind of move things differently, I don't do it every single time the same way with different beats, is because I'm constantly trying to keep my brain functioning, like just make it think a little bit more. So let's not get drawn into this way of thinking. Let's think of all the directions. Okay, it's the same thing as driving. Okay, like us, I take my son to school, and then I'm driving from my son's school to work. Okay, well, there's one way to get there. So when you do that on a daily basis, all you're doing is you're programming your brain to go autopilot. Okay, so, and that's why whenever you're driving and you get to where you were going, if you do this every day, you can't even remember what the fuck, how'd you get there? You get there and you can't even recall what happened in between that. It's because your brain is on autopilot. Well, the same thing could happen here. So if you take that different route instead of doing the daily drive, just take a different route, and your brain starts to just, the gears are turning a little bit better. Makes you a little bit more focused throughout the day. Well, it's the same thing right here on these fucking pads, or any other process in your recording your music. Okay, let's always think about this differently. I want to be able to assign my pads differently, so that way I'm just not thinking in one direction. Let's go different directions. And maybe, okay, I'm not saying it's gonna work, because obviously it didn't for this fucking beat. But if you start thinking different ways, and just the simple assignment of your pads, your brain's not on autopilot, okay? And that's what happens whenever you start to have these monotonous beats. Everything, all your beats sound the same. You start getting mad at yourself, like, fuck, man, I can't think of anything new. Well, it's because you're doing the same process. If you repeat the same things, you're going to come out with the same results. If you want to inspire yourself, then you have to get out of that comfort zone and do something different. Just think about something different. That's what I do. I force myself to do things a little bit differently. It's not life-changing shit, obviously, but I mean, it does help me in my creativity when it comes to beat making. I have it going up. Funky Drummer is gonna go the other way. It already sounds dope as fuck. I ain't done anything. All I'm doing is playing it backwards. So instead of going, okay, I'm going the other way. Do yourself a favor and take a peep at Yusef Kamal Black Focus. Anyhow, so we're about to cut him. I did do 16 steps, but I went ahead and did 8 steps, each for the Funky Drummer and also Yusef Kamal. So now, here's the beat for the Funky Drummer. Yusef Kamal. together. I love the way these two sound together. So now I might mesh both of these together. So I'm gonna keep these separated, that way I can mess with them. Man, they sound on it right here together. Whew. All right, so now let's actually come up with this melody. Okay, so now I've been messing with this for a minute, and I have come up. Remember the original drum beat, which is this. All right, so now what I got, I think I might like this a little better. Yeah. All right, so here we go.